Welcome everyone. Today is quite a special one as I get to sit down and chat with the developers of the Oculus Quest VR RPG, Arcaxer. Now, I featured this game before in my top App Lab videos. You can find that playlist in the description below if you want to check it out. Now, if you're not sure what App Lab is or how to install games, it's really quite simple. Just log into your Oculus Quest browser, type in the following URL, and you'll find a list of games there. Among them is Arcaxer. If you like this video, remember to smash that like button, and I'd love to hear from you in the comment section below. And if you do want to be kept up to date with all the latest Oculus Quest news and reviews, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. I'll also leave links to the game, the Discord channel, and other things in the description below if you want to go check it out for yourself. So I have with me today Aaron and Anthony. They are the developers of Arcaxer. That's a VR RPG for the Oculus Quest. So welcome, gents.
Hey,
Howdy.
good to be on the show.
What I want to say, what I want to know about is maybe the journey. I'd love to hear about the journey, and I'm sure my subscribers would too. How you came to, be on SideQuest, and then from there, go on to the Quest store.
Sure thing. So we originally uploaded our first version to SideQuest, I think super early 2020, around February. And I really didn't know very much about SideQuest at all when we uploaded our first version. I just heard, so first of all, I didn't even know how hard it was to get on the Quest store at the time. So I assumed, as someone that had worked on Rift apps in the past, I was like, oh, cool. We just submit our game and eventually Oculus would push it through all the technical tests and then we'd be on the store. But it turns out it was actually extremely hard to get through their initial vetting process. So then somebody told me about SideQuest, and I heard that other developers were having lots of success there. So I thought I'd try that out, and that actually went really well. I think because it was such a small community at first, and there just weren't a whole lot of Quest games in general, not just on SideQuest, but just out there. It was a lot easier to stand out from other games. You make something unique and you could put it on SideQuest, and because there just weren't that many games out there, it's easy for people to say like, oh, a turn-based RPG, like I haven't played something like that in VR before.
Yeah, especially. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, that first demo was probably about 2 hours of content. It only had the one dungeon, but it had a bunch of different enemies, had some NPCs, had some music. It was a lot more meaty than a lot of the stuff on SideQuest, which was, more so than regular VR applications. It was 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 15 minutes of content. So yeah, we were able to stand up pretty fast early on. That felt good. We started to get pretty good feedback pretty quickly. People were already impressed with it when it was a 2-hour game. So that felt really good.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, I was one of the first adopters of SideQuest, in there when, Crisis Brigade and those early games came out, and yours was amongst them. And I remember seeing it and just playing it and just being blown away. And look, I to be fair, I still think that the game is so unique on the Quest particularly, that even if it had come later, at this later point when we have now a lot more games on SideQuest, I still think it would have been a standout game just because it is so unique and polished. Yeah, I hope I've got this right in that you are. So have you been accepted to the official Quest store?
It's not officially yet.
No, but
it's kind of a process, and it's pretty opaque.
Yeah,
but
we have been
indicators.
Yeah, we have been talking to people at Oculus, and we have. It's still kind of a black box as far as the process to go from being an App Lab unlisted title to being a full-on store title. But from what it sounds like, as long as it looks like your game is going to be profitable, it's something unique that they think belongs on the store, and they know that your team has the skills and the resources to keep it updated, to make sure there's no problems. It's not breaking people's hardware. Those are the things they look for, or they will be looking for, assumed a lot of this is still, just speculation. But based on all that, they'll look at apps like that, and then they'll eventually come forward to the developers and see if maybe they would be interested in moving on to the Quest store. So that's what we're working with right now.
Yep.
Or that's what we're working towards doing, and we think we have a pretty good chance with what we have so far.
Brilliant. So it's not official, but all signs point to that we're, that's where it's headed.
Exactly, yeah.
So it's on App Lab right now, and people can get that from App Lab. I'll link that in the description below as well. If you want to check that out, I highly encourage you to have a look. If you're into RPGs and VR, then you'll love this one. In terms of the RPG elements, how do you go about adapting the classic RPG elements to the VR space? Because it is a bit of a different space, isn't it, to say traditional flat screen gaming?
Mm-hmm. So actually the idea for Arcaxer actually originated in a game that we worked on like way back in 2016, which was called Wave Magic, which was originally just like a prototype for, I don't know if you've ever used the Leap Motion. It was like a hand tracking device you would attach to the front of your Oculus DK2 or whatever you had at the time, and it would track your hands. And that kind of began as just like it was a very simple wave shooter kind of tech demo that it was cool because we were using the Leap Motion, and not a lot of people had any kind of, not even track controls at the time because the Vive wasn't even out. But even then, wave shooters were still like super common.
So saturated, yeah.
Yeah, even in the DK2 days, just like it seems like every VR concept coming out was a wave shooter.
We got a lot of crap.
So I even then I wanted to differentiate that game. So I added this third-person overworld, just like kind of what you see in Arcaxer. It was same thing, third person. You had like the god view, and the whole world seemed really small, like a diorama. And you'd move around, and you'd enter random encounters, same way Arcaxer works. But you'd enter it, and it was like a real-time wave shooter. So you'd get put into a first-person battle, and then enemies would come at you. You'd kill a few enemies, and then the battle would end, and you'd get some money and EXP.
Yeah.
So that project fell apart a couple of years after. We were working with some of our students we graduated with at CSU Chico, and they got jobs. They kind of moved on to doing other things in their life, and the projects just kind of lost steam. But I still really liked that third-person perspective and first-person battle kind of concept, and I wanted to explore that more. So I started working on Arcaxer sometime around 2017, end of 2017. But I wanted to differentiate the combat more and kind of, I guess, slow down the pace and make it feel more classic RPG-y, I guess, if you want to, if that's a word.
Yeah.
So I decided to make it turn-based. Because I really like in VR, like in games like Super Hot and Space Pirate Trainer, just the act of like dodging bullets, kind of that bullet hell kind of feel.
It works so well in VR, doesn't it? It's amazing.
Yeah, it works really well, and I think it's really fun. But I wanted to have that, but with a slower paced game still, and the ability to slow down and think out your moves.
Yeah.
So I split the bullet hell dodging part from the attacking, the player attacking part into two phases and turn that into turn-based combat. So you'd have one phase where it's the hectic bullet dodging, and then you'd have the player phase where you can really kind of slow down, think
take
about
a breath during
that
phase,
take a breath, maybe sit down on the couch for a while.
Just breathe for a second.
If you did too many squats.
Yeah, that's
and
my
really
type of
think
game.
out your, right, and really just think out your moves.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we started with just a simple wave shooter and turned it into this third-person / first-person RPG.
That sounds great. Yeah, look, I appreciate that. I'm not very fit, so I like the opportunity to be able to sit down between rounds. And enjoy the concept, the action with
it's a good core workout. Really gets your blood pressure going.
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah, absolutely. Like some of those fights, especially when you've got a few enemies on you, and trying to dodge out the way.
Right.
I was going to say, so with Arcaxer, obviously this type of game, in many ways, you're pioneers because you're breaking new ground. I mean, VR is still very much in its infancy, even now, and back then it would have been even more so. So I was wondering what kind of challenges you faced. Putting a game into this medium. Were there any big things you come across?
Yeah, let me start this one.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I mostly do just the 3D art. Sometimes I'll throw out ideas and then Anthony makes them work. But usually I just make 3D art for the game. So one of the big problems with the Quest, and this was when we first started this, the Quest wasn't out. The Quest wasn't announced. They didn't have specs or anything, but we assumed the thing that people were going to like and people were going to care about was going to be a small mobile powered 6 Degrees of Freedom headset that's a standalone. That's what we were hoping for. So the Quest and the Quest 2 have been everything we were dreaming about. So I took my usual style, hand painted, really stylized, simple silhouettes. And from Wave Magic, we did it with PBR setup because I didn't know what we were doing, and that's what everyone was doing. So it had normal maps, it had emissions, it had a lot of detail, a lot of information going into the headset that worked okay on the PC, but started to get rougher with mobile sets. So for Arcaxer, it's almost entirely hand-painted diffuse. We've got some normal maps in there to kind of help sell some of the environments, but in general, what you see is just a color map. So it looks like it's a painting because that's the way that I thought was going to be easier. I still have a day job, so I work with a lot of other indie companies, and I've learned from quite a few ex-Riot devs, and I got a lot of guidance on just how to make a hand-painted, stylized thing that runs on a potato, because that's always been League of Legends' goal. We'll run it on anything. That way, people in the Philippines, people on the moon, people in the Mariana Trench can play League of Legends, and they do. So yeah, that mindset was really good for the 3D stuff.
Yeah.
And then that's the end of my expertise.
No, well,
so
that
definitely, hitting those technical marks with the Quest is always a challenge. We have those big kind of outdoor areas like the hub and the Coffee Lake and desert areas.
Yeah.
And since the Quest is a mobile processor, we do have to be really careful with just how detailed things are. And Aaron does a really good job of giving us a lot of detail with very little technical overhead. So I do appreciate that.
So in terms of the recent virus that we shall not name because of YouTube reasons, how has that affected your timeline, or has it affected your timeline at all?
Sure. So I actually think the circumstances of 2020 actually helped us a little bit. So for me specifically, for my full-time job, I work for a dev shop in LA, where we do like contract work, making VR and AR projects for other people and other companies. And during 2020, we actually had less projects because just money was tighter in general. So as a result, I had less work for my full-time job, which gave me more time to work on my personal projects, which, one case was a bad thing because less money for a company, but I did appreciate having more downtime, and that downtime I do feel was what allowed me to put as many hours into the game as I could.
Yeah.
And then for me, it didn't really impact my schedule too much. I work a couple of jobs, so I'm usually slotting stuff in. But like you said, you were on SideQuest early on. SideQuest, I think the events of 2020 really supercharged SideQuest as kind of like a community ground. We set up a Discord server, we set up a Reddit, and people really started to respond to that. And I know for a fact, at least a few of our people who were kind of there the whole time, people who were encouraging us every step of the way, they suddenly had a lot more free time on their hands than they would have otherwise in 2020. So we were able to kind of help them with that problem, and they were able to kind of give us a lot more feedback, a lot more rigorous. They were really good beta testers, and just their general level of enthusiasm has been really motivational for us.
So we definitely had a lot of people that were like, yeah, I wouldn't have even found this game if I wasn't staying at home for so long.
Yeah.
So as terrible as 2020 was, there was a little bit of a silver lining as far as our game. Yeah.
What's the future of Arcaxer look like? So what do you have in store? And do you have any, are you working on anything else? It sounds like you're pretty busy, but do you have any plans to work on anything else in the future? Or are you working on something else in addition to Arcaxer?
Yeah. So the Arcaxer development is definitely going to be going on for a long time. I don't know how much of it I'm allowed to talk about, but I will say we are working on localization efforts right now. We're translating the game to a bunch more languages. We're porting to some other headsets. I also don't think I can name which headsets, but there is a porting process going on.
Okay.
And then on top of that, we're still adding more content. We have our, what we're calling our casino malware patch coming out hopefully within the next couple months, which will be a new dungeon, a bunch of new mini games, new bosses, etc. That we're super excited about.
It's like a lateral expansion. It doesn't affect the main quest at all. It's going to happen. It's going to unlock somewhere around halfway through, and then you're going to be able to finish it towards the end of the actual game. Yeah. But it's side content. It's bonus. Yeah. So, and it's been a lot of fun, especially since we've been working on Arcaxer for 2 years now, 2.5 years. Yep. We've learned a lot. So it's nice to have a little bit of fresh ground to work on, at least for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you know when that might be ready for us?
We're hoping to have at least some of the floor games for the casino. We're like actually making casino games because why not? And it's cheaper than real gambling. Hopefully that can be out soonish in beta. The whole thing is probably Anthony's got a lot of like hard, boring work that he has to do right now. Yeah. So the whole thing's probably going to take a bit longer. But I'm still working on 3D assets because localization doesn't really need a whole lot from me. And as soon as Anthony has time to catch up, he's really good at integrating my stuff. So it'll be pretty fast.
Yeah. I think we're hoping beginning of June for the mini games, and the dungeons most likely going to be a month later.
That sounds like a better answer, yeah.
Oh, well, really looking forward to that, definitely. I want to say, is there any other final words you want to add before we wrap up?
Well, you kind of touched on it earlier. Like Wave Magic was already kind of a weird game, and Arcaxer took all the good ideas from Wave Magic, and Anthony's really made them better and a lot more fun and innovative. I keep waiting for Bethesda or some company to announce that they're making a better version of our game, with like the whole weight of a studio behind it, but no one does. So I'm really impressed with what Anthony's done, and I'm really happy to be a part of the Arcaxer team, and I hope a lot of people think it's a fun game.
I guess I just want to say I'm just really appreciative for all the people that have played our game. It's always been my dream to make a game that I could share with a lot of people, and I definitely feel like the VR space in general has enabled me to get my game out there more than I could if I was just making a PC game on Steam or something. Yeah. So in general, this has just been a really cool experience, and I'm really glad we worked on this project.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm really glad you did too, because I really like this game. You can get right now in the App Lab. Like I said, I'll leave the link in the description below, so go check that out. If you're into RPGs at all, I think you're gonna love it. Thank you guys so much for joining me. It's been great to have this chat, and I'm sure everyone watching out there too as well is gonna love to hear about how it was for you developing this game and what's in store for Arcaxer in the future. All the best with getting into the Quest store. I'm sure that that will happen. Oculus will be stupid to turn this one down, and all the best with that. And I'm sure we'll keep in touch.
Awesome.
Sure. Thanks for having us on.
No worries. Thanks, guys.